If you're sick of your guitar solos sounding like meandering, noodling nonsense, this video is for you. Here are your first 5 steps for writing melodic guitar solos, and guitar lines more generally. Let me just say up front, this is really a lifelong pursuit, being able to write melodically, being able to create lines that are cohesive and that tell a story. This isn't something you can master overnight or even within a couple of months, but you can take certain concrete steps to get better, and here are the 5 first steps that you should take. Step 1, find a backing track that you like, that you connect with, that has at most 4 chords, and that is in one key. It doesn't change key or do anything kind of crazy. I found one online, I'll put it in the description. It's just a G major backing track. Now I like G major because there are a lot of open chords that are in G major. In particular, this backing track just has 4 chords. It goes from G to D to E minor to C. So settle on a backing track. You can use this one, you can use any one you want, but just pick one. And now that you've picked one, play it over and over and over again. Just live and breathe it for a while. Play it on your guitar. Let me just go ahead and pull it up right here. It's called Rock Pop Backing Track in G major. All right, here it is. I'm just gonna play it and play it along with the guitar. G, D, E minor, and then C. And just keep listening to it. It's not good enough just to look at the chords and know what they are. You have to really feel the motion of the chords first and have it be kind of second nature. Because once you start soloing, once you start writing these lines, you're not going to really be able to think as quickly, or you won't have as much cognitive ability to think about what's coming next. You want it to become intuitive. You want it to be able to sort of absorb this chord progression. Now, you're still going to have to think when you're playing these solos and when you're improvising or writing a solo. It's not like you don't have to use your brain at all, but you want it to seep as deep into your subconscious as possible. So put it on a loop and play it on your guitar. That's the first step. Pick a chord progression, play it on a loop, play it on your guitar, live and breathe it for a while. You're not going to be able to solo and create melody lines over just any progression out of the gate with any set of steps. You really have to get used to the chord progression that you're using in the moment. There's really no way around that. You will find the same chord progressions repeated in a lot of songs, so there is overlap here. And, in general, you'll get better at picking up a chord progression. But there's no substitute for looking at the specific chord progression you want to solo over and getting used to it and living and breathing it for a while. You have to do that with whatever you're writing with melodic solos over. Because what you're really trying to do here is play with the changes, or play through the changes, or play the changes. 3 ways of saying the same thing. That is to say, you want to play in such a way that signals and points to and hooks up with the chords as they change. That is the key to playing melodically. So, okay, you got your chord progression. Step 2, find a scale position that is in the key. In this case, it's just G major, right? And there's no non-diatonic notes, there's no key changes, there's nothing weird going on here, no modal interchange, all that fancy stuff that we can worry about later. We just are in the key of G major. We want to find the G major scale in one position on the fretboard. It's very tempting to be like, oh, I want to be able to solo all up and down the fretboard. But if you can't solo well in one position, then you shouldn't start talking about moving positions. You want to really limit where you're going to be working here. You want to find one little neighborhood and really get used to it. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew and get overwhelmed and just freeze and just, again, start noodling randomly throughout positions. You want to get used to one position. So I've picked the position I teach all my beginner students, this G major position right here, just the box position. It's really based off of the E caged shape, but you don't have to think about it that way. Just think about it as the G major scale, starting with your middle finger. You're on 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the 7 notes available to you. And again, the chord progression is fully diatonic, which means all the chords come from the key. So all those notes are within the key. They'll all work. But they're not all going to work the same way in every instance, right? What chord is actually happening in that moment will determine what notes sound like and what role they're playing, whether they're introducing resolution or tension in that moment. And that really, again, is the key to playing melodically. So you have your chord progression, you have your scale position that's in that key. Practice it. You want to really know where your fingers are going to go here. Practice it up and down. But also practice it in different patterns as well. Try groups of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. here is I'm playing 4 notes, then going back to the next note. So there I started on the 3rd fret, now I'll start in the 5th fret. Now I'll start in the next spot here. Next note's this one. So those groups of 4 is a good way to get to know that scale position more than just linearly up and down. Sounds like an etude or something like that. Or you can do it in different intervals, like diatonic thirds, where you skip a note and then go to the note you skipped, skip a note, and so on, like this. Again, what I've done there is play this note, then I'll skip this note, play this one, then I'll go to the note that I skipped, then I'll skip this note, go to the note I skipped, skip this note, and so on all the way through the scale. The point is you're trying to, again, live and breathe this scale position in a way that goes beyond just playing it up and down, because you're not going to play it up and down when you play it. Playing it up and down is the way to start, but then you want to try different note groupings, different intervals. It's really just a way to, again, live and breathe this scale position. Okay, so we have our chord progression. We've listened to it a lot. We have our 1 scale position. Now, of course, you can play the G major scale all over the place. Those notes are all over the guitar. Wherever you are, there will be a G major scale in the nearby vicinity. But that's going to be too much, and it's going to be overwhelming at first. Play 1, stick to 1, live and breathe it for a while, get really used to it, play it up and down, play it left and right, sideways, embody it. Okay, so you have your chord progression, you have your scale position. Now, how do we hook these things together in a way that's not just blindly playing up and down through this in a scalar kind of way? Well, the trick is, and you've probably heard this before, chord tones. A chord tone is just a tone that's in the chord that's currently being played in the backing track. So when G is being played, what are our 3 chord tones? Well, what 3 notes make up G major? G, B, and D. If you don't know that, you can just look it up. It's G, B, and D. All the notes in these chords are going to come from the scale, so long as the chords are diatonic, and in this case, they are. So G, B, and D are chord tones when G is being played. But when you go to D, it's going to be D, F sharp, and A. Those are the 3 chords in this chord. And then E minor, it's going to be E, G, and B. And then C, it's going to be C, E, and G. All those notes are in the G major scale, but what counts as a chord tone depends on what's happening in that moment. So they're going to change as the chords change. So what you want to do for step 3 is pick 1 chord tone per chord and just play it with the progression. Don't worry about writing melodic solos just yet. Don't worry about connecting them. Just play that note during that actual chord. And the easiest one to pick is the root note for each one. So literally G, D, E, and C. Just find those notes within that scale position. They're going to occur more than once typically, sometimes even 3 times. Just find 1 example of each. So here's the progression. I'm going to play it first. G, D, E minor, so I gotta find the G right there. So I think the best place, or use your pinky there, the best place to play a G is right sort of in the middle of the scale, so you're getting used to it. 5th fret of the D string. Now here's where, you might be saying, I don't know the notes of the fretboard. It's okay. You should sit down and try to learn all the notes of the fretboard over several months. Like, there's some great exercises for this if you search for them on my channel or throughout YouTube in general. But you just have to know where they are here for now. And that's really all you got to worry about. That's good. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Same idea. There's a G right here. I'll just tell you. There's a G right here in the 5th fret of the D string. Right? It's the octave from the low 3 there. That's a G. So right away we have our first note. I'm just going to play that when that chord comes along. Then I'll play the next one, which remember is going to be D. So first G. Then we want to play a D. Check this out. Right there. 5th fret of the A string. That's a D right there. So you have those. I'm going to use my pinky just because that's where my hand is when I'm playing the scale shape in a linear, boxy kind of a way. I use my pinky for both of those. Okay. What about E minor? Well, there's an E right here on the 2nd fret of the D string. So far we have a G right there on the D, a D right there on the A, an an E right there, 2nd fret of the D. Then we have a C right there on the 3rd fret of the A string. When you play this chord, that's the C you're playing. So if I just play those notes, you're going to hear the chord progression. That's it. Now all I want you to do is play the chord progression and just play those notes when the chord happens. This is really going to test whether you know this chord progression and also whether you know what your target notes are going to be, what specific chord tones you're going to be thinking about as you're practicing playing through the changes. G, D, E, C. This by itself might take some time, remembering where exactly those chord tones are at the right time. But this is the beginning of playing through the changes. The goal here is going to be to use these chord tones as resolution notes or target notes that really accentuate the chord changes as they happen. It's not that you can only play chord tones over those specific chords, but if you want to resolve your lines, those are the notes you're going to want to resolve too. All the other scale tones, the non-chord scale tones in those moments, will work in a way, but they're going to introduce different degrees of tension. So for example, if I play a different note than those for every single chord, you're going to hear it become kind of tense versus resolved. So instead of a G, I'll play an A. Instead of a D, I'll play an E. Instead of an E, I'll play an F sharp. And then instead of a C, I'll play a D. Kind of slid into it every time, right? Those all sound unresolved. So those are going to be your tension introduction notes. And the notes that are chord tones will be your resolution notes. That's getting a little ahead of ourselves here. For now, just get used to playing the chord tones as they change and just pick the root notes first. All right, so far we have our chord progression. We've listened to it over and over again. We've helped it get to an intuitive level. We have picked our scale position. We've familiarized ourselves with it, up and down, left and right, different intervals and so on. And we've picked a chord tone for every single chord that's in the progression. And we've practiced playing it as the chords change. Step 4 is going to be to try to connect these notes as you're actually playing and create lines. So you can do it in different ways. You can go straight from chord tone through the scale to the next chord tone. You can jump notes. I just want you to play something leading up to each chord tone to try to connect them in some way. Now you're going to be bringing in your chord tone knowledge and marrying it with your scale knowledge. And this is where you start to actually create melodic lines. The first way I'm going to do this is just to play scale notes in between these chord tones. Check it out. I'll walk up to 5 here. Walk down to the D. Then just go to the E. Back down to the C. And at this point, you can start to get more creative. Just start experimenting with different ways of leading up to those chord tones. You don't have to play just the notes in between them. You can play notes below them. You can run up from a different part of the scale. You can skip some notes. There's a lot of things you can do. Just start experimenting here. Check it out. I know where I'm going each time. There's the G. Walk down to the E maybe. Add some hammer-ons and pull-offs. I'm not playing anything but what's in the scale. All right. The next place you can go is to find those root notes in some other part of the scale. So for instance, I'll have the G right here. 3rd fret of the E string. And a D right here. 3rd fret of the B string. And if I want an E, 5th fret of the B string. And if I want a C, 5th fret of the G string. It's always good to find them in places that are kind of close because melodies sound good to the ear when they're close together. Singers don't typically jump around when they're singing a melody. A lot of times they flow. They lead from one note to the next. That's an important thing to do when you're soloing. So let me try those. So we have a G here, 3rd fret. We have a D here. We have an E here. And we have a C right there, remember. All right, so let's try that. First, I'm just gonna play the notes. G first, 3rd fret of the E, then D. Again, in that scale position, 3rd fret of B. 5th fret of B, same position. And then C, 5th fret of G. I'm gonna play stuff. Same thing, same targets. Now I'll try some lines using those new root notes. There's my G. There's my D. There's my E. There's my C. In step 5, repeat steps 3 and 4 with different chord tones. So remember, we're playing triads here. We're playing plain old chords. G, D, E minor, and C. So there are 3 chord tones for every single chord because they're just simple triads. So instead of playing a G, a D, an E, and a C, let's try the 3rd of each chord. So you have to know a little bit about chord theory here, but I'll just tell you what they are in this case. For a G, your 3rd is a B. That's the 2nd note in the chord. Okay? For D, your 3rd is F sharp. For C, for E minor, your 3rd is a G. And for C, your 3rd is an E. So let's find those chords those notes in the actual scale. So we gotta find a B somewhere. Well, there's B's all over the place in this, right? There's B's all over the place in the guitar, but we're staying in one scale position. The first B I think about is the one right here on the 4th fret of the G string. So that could be the note we play over the G. You're gonna find these sound a little bit more interesting than just plain old root notes. They sound a little bit sweeter. They have a great harmony. So you have a B right there, and then when the E minor comes, then when the D comes, you need an F sharp. There's an F sharp right here on the 4th fret of the D string. So we're going from the B right here on the 4th fret of the G to the F sharp right here on the 4th fret of the D. And then for E minor, there's a G right next to it, actually. Again, we've seen this one already on the 5th fret of the D string. So we're going from here to here to here. And then finally, we got to find an E somewhere. Well, there's one right there. We've already seen it on the 2nd fret of the D string. So 4th fret G, 4th fret D, 5th fret D. I can't look and talk at the same time. 2nd fret D. Those are going to be the 3rds of each chord. And now I just want you to practice playing those while the progression actually plays. Nothing more to it than that. Okay, so a B. Sounds right. An F sharp. Sounds like a melody already. Now a G. And now an E. Do it a couple times. B. F sharp. G, E. You probably already realized here, there's really no shortcut to doing this well, but these are the steps that are going to train your fingers, train your ear, and your musical intuitions to be able to do this eventually without thinking. It's not as though when you're writing melodies or improvising, you're always going to be thinking of explicit musical terminology, like, oh, this is a G, and it's, what's the 3rd of this in this moment? That's what you want to think about when you're practicing, and if you get a little bit lost while you're playing, to kind of bring yourself back into where you are. But this is hopefully, the idea is that it'll trickle down and seep into your subconscious so that you hear these relationships and you feel them out intuitively without even explicitly or consciously having to think about them. That's the goal in the long run. But it takes training that explicitly to get there. And when you're practicing, it won't necessarily sound as good as when you turn your brain off and you're actually playing. So keep that in mind. Practicing this stuff is going to sound kind of stilted and not super musical, but this is how you train your subconscious mind, your subconscious musical intuitions to play this stuff fluidly and to turn your brain off in an effective way, eventually. All right, I'm going to try to connect these chord tones now with scale tones. Here's my B. It's my F sharp. Walk out to my G. Walk down to my E. I'm not changing the scale position. I'm not changing what target notes are. It's the same thing every time. I'm just kind of mixing it up. with where my fingers go. The good thing about that is even if you turn your brain off in between, you're starting to train yourself to know where the right notes are, or rather the safe notes, the consonant, the resolution notes, so you can take risks in between. All right, now let's find those notes in a different spot within the same scale. So B first, right? Where's the closest? So we'll stick with that B. I like that B right there. But then let's say we'll say we want to play a different F sharp. We'll play this F sharp up here on the second fret of the E. Okay, then we're gonna need some kind of a G. It's always right next to the F sharp on the third fret there. And there's our E right there for when C is playing on the fifth fret of the B string. So same B, new F sharp, new G, new E. You can already hear the progression again just by playing the thirds like that. I'm gonna use those now. First I'm gonna play them, then I'm gonna play through them. Or then I'm gonna play in a way that connects them, I should say. Just get used to where they are. This is an achievement in and of itself to be able to do this. B, F sharp, G, and then E. Now I'll try to connect them. Sharp, G, the next thing would be to find the fifth of each chord, which is the third note in the chord, and try to do the same thing with that. So those are your 5 steps. Find your chord progression, glue yourself to it, find a scale position, get really comfortable with it, find chord tones for each chord, play them over the progression when the changes happen, try to connect them, do the same thing with different chord tones. And then maybe you could say a step 6 is turn all that off and just rip it. Just try to play and see what happens intuitively. The goal, the ideal here is that you're training your musical intuitions to be able to do this without thinking. See if something cool comes out. Record yourself and go, oh, that note sounded really cool over this chord. That one didn't sound so good over this chord. Even if they're all within the key, some of them won't sound very good over certain chords. Maybe you've introduced too much tension, or maybe there's too much resolution and it sounds kind of boring. This is the beginning of all this. So there you go. Those are what I think are 5 very effective first steps for learning how to play and create melodic guitar solos and guitar lines. I think you'll find that if you follow these 5 steps and put the reps in, although it might feel and sound stilted when you're practicing, when you turn your brain off, you'll find new abilities to spontaneously create the kind of melodies that you want to create and that you hear from your favorite guitar players. Give it a shot. And if you like this video and found it helpful, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel and dropped a like. See you next time.